And we would like to start the panel now. And my question to you, Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut, is it okay for you if I address my question in English, or would you like to answer in German? In English is okay?
Or English is fine.
Perfect, okay. So you already mentioned in your speech that we heard about 10 minutes ago that successful startup BW, the pre-seed program as you called it, is based on an Israeli model, really. That's why we're having this conversation, this panel now. So I think that a closer exchange, especially with Israel, was quite difficult within the last 2 years. How could the partnership between you and Israel, and of course the UK as well, be intensified during the crisis? How did you do that?
I mean, during the crisis, it was really a challenge. Of course, we used digital formats to communicate and to interact. But now, as the COVID crisis is not over, but it's on an, I would say, a lower level, so that we are able to travel. That's also why you are here today, from Israel, from Great Britain, personally, and that, of course, makes a difference. This personal contact is the best way also to transfer technology, to exchange between people ideas, and we try to intensify this collaboration between Baden-Württemberg and Israel. In 2019, we already started the Israel Partnership Program in Mannheim, and a student project called Green Digital Activator in Freiburg. So before the COVID crisis, there were already concrete initiatives founded. And on these initiatives, we build up now a closer collaboration, which has to grow. Yeah.
Thank you. And before I address my next question to you, Mr. Hemo, because we haven't talked yet and you haven't addressed anything at the audience yet, good morning from my side, of course.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. I just said that you're the head of the Economic and Trade Mission of Israel. So how are you involved in the startup business in Israel? What is your responsibility regarding startups? The startup scene.
Thank you. So, yeah, as the economic office here in Munich, which we're also, of course, in charge of Baden-Württemberg, our main goal is to bring the Israeli, not only startups, but of course also startups, to Germany, to Baden-Württemberg, to cooperate with the German enterprises. So it will be a win-win for everyone. And I think that as an AI economic-driven country, which Israel is, I think we do not compete one another. So we mainly complete. And there is a lot of nice solutions where you can see Israeli solution implemented or deployed in German companies. And this is our main goal, what we do here.
Okay, so it's more a completion than a competition, really.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. What about the sound? Can you hear us all right at the back? Everything's okay? Okay. Maybe can we get a bit more sound on the monitor of the other speakers? Thank you. So, Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut, just my second question to you. In addition to Israel, this year the UK is also an official partner country of the Startup BW Summit. What makes the relationship with the UK so important, especially in regard to the startup ecosystem?
I mean, after the Brexit, we started our partnership initiative.
Yeah.
Between Baden-Württemberg and General Consul Kendall between the UK. And I think it's really important for Europe as a continent and for all of us that we intensify the exchange between the UK and Baden-Württemberg on a, I would say, lower official level, underneath the big politics. That's so important because we have so much in common, and thank you very much, General Consul Kendall, for your clear words and that you are also interested. And we realize that since we work together, that we get closer together, that we collaborate, and I mean the challenges we are facing all together. So we have to find solutions and answers also together. And as you said, the UK is far ahead of us regarding your startup community. You also have another startup culture, and so it's very important that we get closer together, that we exchange, and that we collaborate. And thank you very much for us. We really appreciate that, and it's something very special. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So my next question is for the General Consul, Kendall. Why is the UK, you already mentioned this in your welcoming speech, why is the UK a leader in tech and artificial intelligence? To be honest, I didn't really know that. I think a lot of the scene, of course, knew it before. But what are the challenges maybe for the sectors at the moment as well?
Well, I think when most people think about the United Kingdom, they tend to think of the City of London and finance. But there's actually another big kid on the block, and it's tech. And when I think about the UK tech industry at the moment, the figures are pretty astounding. The tech industry in the UK is worth about $1 trillion now, and we've got 1/3 of all of Europe's AI companies and a thriving startup system. So, we're in a very fortunate place. And I suppose the question is, why is that? And I think it comes down to three things, really. One of them is around skills and diversity. One is around finance. And one is around regulation. So on skills and diversity, the UK has 5 of the global top 20 universities. And many of our 122 unicorns have come out of those universities. We've got 500,000 programmers and software engineers, and we're tailoring our visa and immigration system to attract the very best talent that we possibly can. And something also that's really important that I mentioned earlier, and that is seeing more women in tech, driving the agenda forward. And I have to say, it's great to see that on the agenda here today at Startup Summit. When it comes to the finance and technology, well, they go together like Kaffee and Kuchen, or if I can, Käsespätzle and Rostzwiebel.
Beautiful.
And I think that the UK can bring these two things together. And in 2021, for startups, the UK raised $40 billion. And that's just behind the US. That's ahead of China, that's ahead of India. And these things are just quite staggering, to be honest. These numbers are absolutely staggering. And then, of course, lastly, on regulation. The UK is pro-innovation. And therefore, our regulation has got to be pro-innovation. And I think we want to make sure that our regulation is light touch. We want to make sure that we're quick. We want to make sure that we're nimble and that we're able to regulate appropriately and support companies to innovate. But at the same time, we still want to make ethical use of the massive data that we have, whether it's from our Department for Transport or whether it's from the NHS, and also taking sound advice, such as from places like the Centre of Data Ethics and Innovation in the UK. So I think those three things are there. The challenges are there's still not enough skills, there's still not enough women in tech, and actually the international regulatory environment in the future, which we're helping to shape with our partners, that's still a bit uncertain.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much for this estimation and for this information, which of course maybe a few people here didn't know about, like me. So there's already a very successful collaboration between the UK and Baden-Württemberg in the field of tech and artificial intelligence in the framework of the UK-BW Economic Partnership Initiative. What do you see, General Consul, in regards to opportunities for further development of this initiative I've just spoken about?
Well, I think it's a great initiative, and I have to say, firstly, I'm a big fan of Baden-Württemberg. I really like Baden-Württemberg, I have to say. I mean, if you look at the great cities and universities in Baden-Württemberg, you know, cyber technology, whether it's Tübingen, Karlsruhe, Stuttgart, there's a great amount of talent and expertise here, and I think it's great. Innovation and R&D spend in Baden-Württemberg, it's astounding. I mean, I think it's the largest levels of R&D spend in Germany. I mean, it's really quite staggering. You've got great companies. You've got Bosch, you've got Mercedes, you've got SAP, and you've got a backbone of small, medium-sized enterprises that drive your international reputation through the roof. And if I can, Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut, you've also great football managers as well. I should add that, if I can just throw that in. But in terms of the kind of opportunities for collaboration, I think there's two things that come to mind for me. One of them is about combining our strengths, so combining our respective strengths. Baden-Württemberg is Weltmeister, manufacturing, export, all the things that the world wants. And the UK is great at tech, it's great at finance, and I think it's about trying to work together to bridge that link, or make that link between deep tech deployment and making our best industries competitive for the future and against all of that other competition that we're seeing across the world. The second area, I think I would say, where there is opportunity is it's not called emerging tech for nothing, you know, and I think that we've got to learn from each other in a rapidly advancing environment. And therefore, you know, it's upon us in part of this initiative to get our startups together, to get our hubs together, to get our accelerators together, and get us talking to each other about all of these things that we need to work on. And I think the memorandum of understanding between Baden-Württemberg and the greater Leeds region in the UK is a start. Lots more to do.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much, General Consul, to be here and to give us these answers. I would like to come over to Israel now. Mr. Hemo, am I pronouncing your name correctly, Hemo?
Yeah, Hemo. Yeah.
Ah, very good. So the pandemic, of course, hit the entire world, as we all know, and especially from an economic point of view. But still, there were not a lot, but let's say a few countries that have come out of the crisis more prosperous than before. If we talk about Israel, how did Israel profit from the post-corona era, especially in regards to fundraising?
All right, thank you for the question. So indeed, when the pandemic started, Israel was hit quite severely, and we didn't have this Kurzarbeit rate mechanism. So I think the unemployment rate went up to 2 digits figure.
Oh.
But after we recovered the first shock, people started to do a lot of home office, and especially in the high tech. And this home office actually increased the productivity, because Israel is a congested country, and instead of spending time commuting to work, people were working from home. On the other hand, we saw that there was a demand increase in the globe, in the entire world. And I mean demand for digital health, demand for e-commerce. People stopped buying in the shops and went buying online. All kinds of smart manufacturing tools. This is what we, Israel, I think we're good at. All kind of, as I said before, AI-driven technologies. And therefore, the startups or our companies started to flourish more and more. And this was not hidden from the eyes of investors. So you say credible figures about the UK, but also in Israel, if we look at the figures, not too deep, but the total high-tech startup fundraise in 2019 around 8 billion, to 2020 10 billion, and in 2021 25 billion.
Wow.
So that's a huge gap, and actually if we look at the first half of 2022, we already exceeded the 10 billion. So we still, it's not as strong as it used to be in 21, but still we see good figures. Our economy, again, despite COVID, did quite well. You can see it cross-sectorial. You can see it in the cyber, which I think 1/3 of total investments in cyber companies went to Israeli-based companies. You can see it even in food tech. So alternative protein, it's an amazing figure, which I learned. $600 million US dollars were invested in Israel alternative protein, and into all entire Europe, 500.
Wow.
So I think we're doing when it comes to fundraising for the startup ecosystem quite well.
These are amazing figures for me as a vegan, I have to say. Happy to hear that. And it sounds like you have really profited from the crisis then, especially in Israel.
In some aspects, yes.
Okay. Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut already said something about the connection between you and Baden-Wuerttemberg, that was actually intensified during the last 2 years. So you have really strong collaboration bonds between Baden-Württemberg and Israel. What is your thought about this intensified new relationship?
Okay, yes. So maybe we start with some examples, okay? So in the past 1 year. So UBQ Materials, it's a company which recycled different materials. Now they have a joint venture with Daimler. So basically, the internal parts of Daimler are going to be used by UBQ Materials, which is recycled components, which is basically, it's mandatory regulated. So this is a great joint project. Bosch have acquired just recently a company in the motion control, Elmo, for a few hundred million US. They also have a great collaboration. They're going to manufacture also controls for mobility with another company called IRP, that thanks to my employee Vipke Fischer, she helped to make that introduction and that deal. XM Cyber, yes Vipke, thank you. XM Cyber was acquired by Schwarzkopf just last year, so basically they're going to base their whole security cloud solution on an Israeli cyber company. And these are just examples I can speak about. There are, of course, all other kinds of examples that are still on a cooking phase. And why is that? So first and foremost, I would say thank you, Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut, because you're leading the way to the industry. You're showing them that they should go to Israel. Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut visited twice, I think, in the past 5 years. She opened a front office in Tel Aviv. I hope this office will grow. So, of course, the government paves the way for the industry in Germany, and this is very important. And of course, if we look, what I said before, at the industry, so very automotive, strong industry in Baden-Württemberg, very strong medtech in Tübingen. So this is where we can complete. So we have these niche solutions where we can implement. For example, as I said, in cyber, in automotive, in controls, and so on, to Baden-Württemberg ecosystem. But I think there is also one more thing. I think nowadays, when we become more globalized, Israelis, and this is in general with Germans, we know to understand one another. Cultural-wise, the gaps are closing. So if the Israelis sometimes been seen too pushy, so the Germans can tolerate that. And same the vice versa. So sometimes the Israeli says, okay, we know that Germans need some more time to adjust what we just presented, and so on and so on. And I think that the chemistry, also the marketing people in Israel, they are more pros, they are more professionals than they used to be a decade ago. And I can see it, I'm in the business for 15 years already, so I can see that there is more maturity, in our companies, in Israel and in Germany. I think these cultural gaps are being closed.
Okay, thank you very much for this explanation. And maybe as a few last words from you, what would you like to address to our audience, to our startups here today, how they should be profiting from this day today?
So thank you. So we do have here several Israeli companies exhibiting here. So of course, I encourage you to go and visit them. But I also encourage you to go and visit Israel. And yeah, of course. And again, what I hear, we have some, of course, good things in Israel and some bad things in Israel. But people who go on a tourist trip or on a business trip, they're all come back astonished. And I really encourage you to go and do that. If you need our help, you can always approach our office at the consulate, in Munich. We're happy to help you with that.
Thank you for this invitation. I'm definitely coming to Israel on my list. Thank you. General Consul Kendall and Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut, is there anything you would like to add before I have to leave you again?
Only to say thanks very much. And please do all speak to each other. Please go and see the UK companies. Of course, I'd invite you to the United Kingdom. Israel's a bit sunnier, but you know, it's okay though.
Thank you very much. Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut, would you?
So, Mr. Kendall, I think we need sun and we need rain. That's what we realized this summer. It was a very dry summer, also in Baden-Wuerttemberg. But I think what's so important that we get closer together. In these days, we face so much challenges, but a lot more opportunities. But we can only give the right answers and find a successful way. And I'm convinced that this only will be in a long term successful when we work closer together, when we collaborate. And it's really great having you here from Israel, from UK. That's a strong sign from you, and yeah, for us it's something very special. And now let's start up this day, this summit, our community. I'm really curious what else is happening today during this summit.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was our political panel. Thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to be here. We know that you have a lot of things to do. I don't know if you are staying around or if you have to leave again. Are you staying or are you leaving? Yeah, you're staying? Perfect. Okay, so we're happy to see you. Maybe you want to talk to each other again. Maybe you have a question. And thank you, Mr. Shamir, for being here. Thank you for addressing this beautiful, warm welcome to us. And we would like to continue in our program. And you are able to take a seat and relax now. Thank you very much to be on stage, Mr. Hemo, Mr. Kendall, and Dr. Hoffmeister-Kraut. Thank you very much. Thank you.